from grease monkey to green energy guru, the meteoric rise of Jeff Karpov. Jeff Karpov was a mechanic from California. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. In fact, he struggled to make ends meet. Karpov ran a struggling auto repair shop with his brother-in-law. But the business failed. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Karpov turned to selling drugs. It was a dark period in his life, but fate, it seemed, had other plans for him. Karpov saw an opportunity in the burgeoning solar energy sector. He became a solar panel salesman. It was a far cry from fixing engines, but Karpov had a knack for sales. He quickly rose through the ranks. He was good, maybe too good. This was just the beginning of a wild ride. Karpov wasn't content with just selling solar panels. He had bigger ambitions. He saw a gap in the market fear of solar panel theft. People were hesitant to invest in solar power. They were afraid their expensive panels would get stolen. Karpov had an idea, a solution. He would create mobile solar generators. These generators would be mounted on trailers. They could be easily moved and secured. It was a brilliant idea, or so it seemed. Karpov partnered with a software professional named Watson. Watson was a marketing whiz. He knew how to sell a story. Together they formed DC Solar. Their goal was simple: to revolutionize the solar energy industry. They were going to make millions, and they weren't afraid to bend the rules to get there. Solar power. Karpov and Watson knew they needed a splashy marketing campaign. They set their sights on Hollywood. The film industry was always looking for ways to be more environmentally friendly. And DC Solar's mobile generators were perfect for powering film sets. They were quieter than traditional diesel generators, and they were much better for the environment. DC Solar's generators were a hit in Hollywood. They were used on the sets of major films. Big-name actors and producers started using them, and they loved it. DC Solar was becoming a household name, at least in Hollywood households. The Hollywood connection was a stroke of genius. It gave DC Solar an air of legitimacy, and it attracted a lot of attention. Investors were lining up to throw money at Karpov. They all wanted a piece of the action. Little did they know they were buying into a lie. Karpov was a master manipulator. He knew how to play the game. He used his Hollywood connections to lure in wealthy investors. He promised them huge returns, and for a while he delivered, but it was all a facade, a carefully constructed illusion. Tax breaks and trailer parks. How Karpov turned sunshine into a money machine. Karpov's success wasn't just about Hollywood glitz and glamour, it was also about cold, hard cash, specifically government cash. The US Congress had tripled the tax credit on solar investments. This meant investors could get a 30% return on their investment just for going green. Karpov saw an opportunity. He crafted a seemingly irresistible deal. Customers would only have to pay 30% up front for their solar panels. The remaining 70% would be paid in installments. But here's the kicker. The government rebate would effectively cover the initial cost. It was like free money, or so it seemed. Investors flocked to DC Solar. They were buying up mobile solar generators like they were going out of style. Karpov couldn't build them fast enough. He was raking in the dough, but there was a problem. A big problem. The solar generators weren't actually generating that much revenue. In fact, they were barely generating any revenue at all. Karpov was running a classic Ponzi scheme. He was using money from new investors to pay off old investors. It was a house of cards, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Billion-dollar house of cards, the Ponzi scheme that fueled DC Solar's success. Behind the gleaming solar panels and the Hollywood smiles, DC Solar was rotting from the inside. The company's success was built on a lie, a massive billion-dollar lie. Karpov wasn't a green energy visionary. He was a conman, a swindler, a thief in a green energy suit. The Ponzi scheme was remarkably simple. Karpov would sell mobile solar generators to investors. He would then use the money from new investors to pay off old investors. He promised huge returns, and for a while he delivered, but it was all smoke and mirrors. To keep the scheme going, Karpov had to keep finding new investors. He needed a constant influx of cash, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. He lied to investors, he forged documents, he even bribed officials. Karpov was desperate. He knew that if the truth ever came out, it would all be over. Buffett, blinded by the light, how a mechanic scammed the Oracle of Omaha. Even the savviest investors can fall prey to a good scam, and Jeff Karpoff's scam was very, very good. He managed to snag some big fish, really big fish. One of those fish was none other than Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the Sultan of Sweet, the sage of investing. How did Karpoff manage to fool one of the most successful investors of all time, the same way he fooled everyone else, with a combination of charm, charisma, and outright lies? Karpoff targeted Buffett through a subsidiary of his company, Berkshire Hathaway. He offered them a sweet deal on a bunch of mobile solar generators, and he threw in some hefty tax credits to sweeten the pot. Buffett, it seemed, was blinded by the light. He bought into the scam hook, line, and sinker. Truth. The unraveling of DC Solar's solar panel empire. All Ponzi schemes eventually crumble. It's just a matter of time. And for Jeff Karpoff, time was running out. The cracks were starting to show. Investors were getting suspicious. The feds were sniffing around. The walls were closing in. In 2019, the FBI raided DC Solar's offices. They seized computers, documents, and even a private jet. Karpoff's empire was crumbling. The truth was out, and it wasn't pretty. The news of DC Solar's collapse sent shockwaves through the financial world. Investors were outraged, politicians were scrambling, and the media had a field day. Karpoff was public enemy number one. He had scammed his way to $1 billion fortune, and now he was going to pay the price. Regulation meltdown, the DC Solar scandal, and the need for stronger oversight. The DC Solar scandal wasn't just about one man's greed. It was a symptom of a much larger problem, a problem of lax regulation and insufficient oversight. The government had created a system that made it all too easy for scammers like Karpoff to thrive. The tax credits that were supposed to promote clean energy had instead fueled a massive fraud. Investors had been blinded by the promise of easy money, and regulators had been asleep at the wheel. The DC Solar scandal exposed a gaping hole in America's regulatory system. It showed that even the most sophisticated investors can be fooled, and it highlighted the need for stronger oversight of the financial industry. In the wake of the scandal, lawmakers vowed to strengthen regulations and increase oversight. But the question remains, will it be enough to prevent another DC Solar from happening again? Only time will tell.